welcome to season 3 of the Toilet Paper Diaries. And these are very special. These are the secret toilet paper diaries. So secret that you've never seen it before, but they existed. Now, Ernesto, how did these come about?
We have been asked by several of our customers and our clients to put together some business blueprints to deliver to their business so that they can start implementing during the pandemic. And the information that we shared was great, but of course it was really on a closed environment. Hardly anybody was looking at them. And right now, after they have implemented, what we said to ourselves is, you know what? Can you imagine how much goodness we can actually provide to all our community just by sharing these business blueprints?
So the business blueprints were exclusively for our own clients. So here we are. Enjoy. It's a secret toilet paper diaries.
Do you remember when we got all excited because we were going to travel to speak at an event? It was great. I loved interacting with the participants, getting to meet new people, explore exotic destinations. In fact, in many cases, I offered myself to be the tour guide. But all of that has changed. On March 12, 2020, President Trump declared a 30-day travel ban to the United States, and since, life has never been the same again. I honestly doubt travel will recover in a while, and I have the same feeling about events. Let's accept the fact the new normal that COVID-19 brought to us will linger a lot longer than we originally expected. Now, all speakers are facing today the same challenge. How can we continue to make money with our craft, speaking, if after all we cannot speak at live events? Webinars are not the solution. Perhaps we can make money doing webinars if we are great salespeople. The problem is webinar attendance is down, and I doubt it will rise. Zoom is great for meetings. Yet guess what? There's also a lot of Zoom fatigue. Honestly, how many multi-speaker summits can you participate on? Probably during the lockdown, you participated in some free events or podcasts to quote-unquote help the community. However, now that the lockdown is over, we have to figure out how to grow our speaking business or relaunch our speaking careers in the virtual economy. And this is exactly what I'm going to share with you right now. In a world where most companies are still working from home, where airlines and events are operating at 33% capacity, and a world where it is hard to meet people face to face, we need to have a strategic presence on the internet. In other words, we have to rebrand ourselves and let the world know that we are not only speakers, but we are also broadcasters. So the first thing that you need to do is strategically build a speaker media kit. Now, what do I mean by that? We have entered a world where speakers are getting hired to deliver specific topics. The marketplace is not hiring speakers who are great speakers, but they are hiring speakers who can deliver or train the exact messages or trainings that corporations need. Yes, there are budgets and there are still companies hiring, but you must adapt yourself. If you have an outdated speaker website or you do not have a virtual well-ready speaker media kit, your chances of getting hired will be reduced significantly. If you think because you are a great platform speaker, you can sell yourself as a virtual speaker, you might end up very disappointed. While everyone was on lockdown, Dave Crane and myself did significant research to be able to reinvent ourselves for the digital world. We spoke with event planners and human resources experts, and today we are going to be sharing the secrets that you need to know to be able to enter into the virtual world. Now the question is, are you ready to do whatever it takes to go over the hump and fast forward your speaking career to the virtual economy? what's the difference between a speaker and a broadcaster? And this is a very critical question for you to understand. If you don't understand this, trust me, it's going to be very difficult for you to make it on the virtual economy. A speaker goes and presents in an event. A speaker goes and talks in a webinar. A speaker goes and possibly talks into a Zoom. But that's it. Now, a broadcaster has a platform. Yesterday, we actually did a show on diversity and inclusion. On Monday, we did a show on Black Lives Matter. We had over 1,500 people watching us in both days. We have actually built this platform. Right? That means that every time that we actually go live, we have about 1,000 to 1,500 people watching us. That is what it's called a broadcasting platform. I mean, if you are a broadcaster, that means that you have a platform. If you are a speaker, you need to actually speak at someone else's platform. And that's the difference of who's going to make it well in the speaking world, in the expert world. And I think this is one of the most powerful insights that you are going to be getting throughout these fast forward trainings. Dave, does that actually cover why is this so important?
Absolutely. And the thing is, everybody's scrambling around trying to find what's the next big thing. People are talking about when the event's going to open up again. You know, are we going to share secrets that we used to have, our pricing? Are we going to collaborate and all the rest of it? Most people don't realize that the old world not only has gone, but it's never coming back again. There will be a new way of doing conferences, a new way of entertaining, a new way of speaking, a new way of connecting. You've already found it with Zoom, the fact that you used to sit in traffic on the way to a meeting, and now you can just say, should we go live now? And straight away you're in front of the person. The most convenient way of doing it, but that's not everything. We're going to be talking soon about virtual training experiences. And if you haven't got a clue what those are, Ernesto, what are virtual training experiences?
Well, just think of it. I mean, if you go to a Zoom meeting, it's going to be terribly boring. I'm sure that you have seen some of those Zoom meetings that you see people picking their noses or doing some weird things while they are on screen, and people that don't really know how to present. And basically every Zoom meeting starts like, can you hear me? I can see you. Are you there?
Press that button. Press
that
button.
Unmute yourself. That's exactly what we're going to be talking about, how you can actually create these kind of training experiences. And this is what this is going to be, virtual training experiences. We're going to be teaching you how this is done, how you can become a real virtual global speaker, because that is also a very, very important thing. And you know what the great thing is, because of course you are in a gated community, on a secret group, we will be able to follow up with you. It's not that we're just throwing this and we're not going to be there with you. So that's why this is so important.
Absolutely. And the question that many people will be asking is, okay, if it's so special and you got some incredible guests, and we have got James Denley, who's not only a dear friend of ours, he'll be a dear friend of yours by the time we finish the show, an expert speaker, and also a guy responsible for training some of the biggest speakers and best known names in the industry. Why are we giving this away for free? Well, I know you're thinking that. Well, very simply, it's a different way of running the economy. It's a different way of connecting. Our first thing is to see whether people will connect. That's why we're doing it behind closed doors. There's a new economy and a different way of creating finances. And we'll be sharing with you every single thing you need to know to be able to do this for yourself. And that was a strategy that we put together to create a success story for every single person who's a fan and a follower and a friend of the Fast Forward show. So nobody really knows how things are going to play out. They're all wondering what's coming now, what's coming next. But the idea is you need experts, you need strategies, you need to connect with people who've done it before, who've reinvented themselves several times, so they can tell you little tips that make the difference between not getting any clients and suddenly being the person who's at the top of the food chain that everybody wants to work with. And that's what we're aiming to help you with Fast Forward, as opposed to the toilet paper diaries. We take you to a brand new level.
I find it really amazing that there's some people which are right now saying, well, you know, I will show you how you can actually do it now in the virtual world. I mean, let's just be very honest. Nobody knows exactly in which direction we're going. So that's why we're having these weekly so that we will be telling you strategies which are going to be working and as we see them. So you're going to also be learning with us. So we have the resources, we have the contacts. I mean, we are connected to some of the most powerful people in the industry, if not the world. I mean, if you possibly remember episode 50 of the Toilet Paper Diaries, we had about 50 different experts, starting from the mentor from Steve Jobs to some of the top speakers in the industry. Today, we have one of the most prominent speakers in the world talking to us, and you're going to see that we are all trying to figure this out. And you know what? None of us are as smart as all of us. That's why we are doing it here, and that's why we are not charging for this. Now, there's only one thing that we will ask you in return. What we would like to ask you in return is that you invite people to the group, because we want to have a big impact. So if you're watching right now live, or if you're in the Facebook group right now, please make sure to invite people to come to the group. That's what we want. We want to make sure that by the end of the episode today, at least we have doubled the amount of people that were inside of the group. So here's what you need to do right now. Please think of somebody which is a speaker, think of somebody which is an expert, think somebody which is an entrepreneur within your Facebook friends, and invite them right now to join the group. That's all we ask in return. Dave and I are going to put our hearts. Yesterday, Dave and I, we were working until 3 o'clock in the morning to make sure that we had a great show together. Where are we, Dave?
Well, 3 o'clock in the morning, and you're based in Houston, and I'm based in Dubai. So your 3 o'clock and my 3 o'clock are not the same time, but we both put the same hours in. So yeah, it was incredible.
We were working actually 24/7 to make sure that we have this show ready.
And so what we want to do is we want to invite you to become one of our founding members, because we will be growing this. At the moment, we've got about 250 members, and that's within about a day and a half of inviting a few people and saying that you've got the opportunity. If you like the Toilet Paper Diaries, and wait till you see this. We want to take it up to a really high level, but we don't want to throw it open to people who aren't interested in growing their business, aren't interested in benefiting from meeting our exclusive guests and finding out exactly how to improve their business or start a business or work on somebody else's business. We only want people that are dedicated. That's why we work so hard on the quality of the content, so hard on the training, so hard on getting the very best guests. And we're going to be inviting you at some point to join our virtual mastermind as well. But they've got loads of stuff planned up for you in this show. And I remember being in a meeting today with somebody, and it was a group of people from the entertainment and events industry. And when I mentioned the fact that we were doing a show tonight, and yesterday we had best part of 1,000 people watching us on Facebook, every single one of them went, "Ah." So this is something that's new. This is something that's at the cutting edge of what people are going to be doing online. And you've come as a founding member, as part of our team. And it's a real honor to have you here. But make sure when you think about the people you'd like to have contributing to you and masterminding for you, get them to join here as well. Because every week we've got the biggest and best guests, and you want to be part of that as well.
Out of these virtual training experiences that we're going to be doing every week in Fast Forward, we are going to create a modular membership area where you will be able to go and see the replays. And also we're going to cut every single thing so that you can actually follow the process on what we have been learning. But the only way to be able to see that information is if you actually come and join us here, and we will be explaining to you how it all works. There's no cost, there's nothing for sale. We are all in this together. Once again, none of us are as smart as all of us. The question is, okay, I would like to start speaking. Well, let me tell you what, there's only 5 topics that are being requested right now. If you are presenting in something else besides those 5 topics, guess what? It's going to be very difficult for you to actually get hired. So that's the first thing that you need to take into consideration. So let me just share with you a couple of things. Right now, there's one thing that you need to understand. There's one word, well, that's actually 2 words, but there's 2 words that are going to become incredibly important. If you're a speaker, if you're a trainer, if you're an author, if you're an expert, if you're a business, that requires education, you're going to have to really live with these two words, ed tech. Now you're going to say, what the hell is ed tech? So I have a short little video which is going to explain what ed tech is all about. Have a look.
The World Economic Forum has predicted that by 2022, over half of employees will need to upgrade or learn new skills to do their jobs, and that was before the pandemic. Now, as unemployment levels hit record highs, economists are predicting that many of those jobs may not return at all.
We've got this mass remobilization of the workforce upon us, and COVID just took that, to a whole nother level.
That's a problem 36-year-old David Blake wants to address with LearnIn, a service for employees to learn or upgrade their skills, which he says is a better alternative to job cuts.
Historically, it was sort of this lay people off, fire people, furlough people, or retain people. And we're saying there's a better way. There's a third option, which is even in scenarios where you're going to have to meet payroll reductions, do so by, instead of laying people off, by putting people into low-cost, high-quality training programs.
David launched the business with his co-founders and $3.5 million in funding in mid-April, just as US unemployment claims soared. LearnIn works with employers to figure out the skills they need to future-proof their business and the investment it will take. Employees are then invited to complete relevant short training courses at either full, reduced, or no pay, with the guarantee of returning to work at the end. That's not only beneficial for employees, who may otherwise be laid off, says David. It's also more cost-effective for employers, who can save on rehiring when the economy recovers.
A lot of companies also, are seeing increased demand and know that this is more about proactive upskilling of the workforce, and they're actually paying people to learn because they know that if they aren't upskilling in their people now, they're going to be caught, flat-footed behind 6 months from now, 12 months from now.
And while career breaks or learning sabbaticals are not new, David says the pandemic has shown that work and education no longer need to be mutually exclusive.
At every other point, there's a tension between productivity and learning. That any time you're spending over here learning is not time you're spending on productivity. What we've seen is layoffs are extremely costly and often, ROI negative. And so companies that can be smart about using the time to upskill in their people, on the right time horizon, it's always going to be a win. And the question is just about, can the company navigate that time horizon?
Very interesting. It tells it exactly as it is, because if you weren't thinking like that and you weren't considering where the business needs to be or where your business needs to be, or even if you're an employee and you're thinking, my job's not safe, if you weren't paying attention to what happened on that video in the last 4 minutes or so, then you're going to go back and get some rude surprises.
Now you saw the what edtech is going to be. So of course, right now the entire tech world is actually trying to figure out how we can change. Now that gives us two cues. Cue number one is that we're not going to go back to how we were doing things. Right now, for example, companies are realizing possibly they have a budget of $500,000 to do a big event, but possibly it's going to cost them only $50,000 to do a virtual event. A virtual event using virtual training experiences like doing now. Most of the companies which are doing virtual training experiences or really virtual global speaking experiences are figuring out how to do it, and the equipment is extremely expensive. How much are we paying for our equipment? What different things are we doing? That's exactly what we are going to be learning throughout the whole process. Now, just imagine that you actually go on a company. You show them the two elements. You have the broadcasting element, and you have the results mechanism in your business, and it is set correctly done. Then you can really start doing leadership marketing. Let me just show you something very interesting. These are just coming up figures. These are just out of the oven. And this is basically what companies are actually right now spending on training. So they actually have budgets from $1 to $500 to spend on each individual. So that's actually the biggest growing the biggest growing statistic there. Now, why is that important to know? Because of course, if you know how to price it and you present the idea correctly, people are happy to pay $1,000, $1,500, $2,000 for you to come and speak for 1 hour virtually to their organization. Dave, would it be okay if I actually take them to my screen and share them exactly how this is done?
Be my guest.
Okay, so now we are here, and you're seeing here my browser in my desktop, and I'm going to show you specifically what we have done to position ourselves as top virtual global speakers and how you can do the exact same thing. Mind you, this strategy is going to take a little bit of time to implement. However, we will guide you step by step in how to get it done. We believe very strongly that the way to be successful in the virtual world is not about doing webinars, or is not about doing lives, or is not about doing what 99.9% of the speakers are doing, but by actually having a specific methodology. Now, once again, if we're going to be transmitting from our garage or your house or wherever you are, you don't have an audience. So if you don't have an audience, you have to be thinking like a broadcaster. You should not be thinking like a speaker. At this point in time, you need to be a broadcaster. That's absolutely critical. So here's what you need to understand. First of all, I want you to go into the toiletpaperdiaries.com. If you want already to go there and keep the browser open, if that's not possible, then don't worry about it. You can do it later. Make sure to go to the Toilet Paper Diaries. Make sure to enter your name and email so that you will have access to the membership site. We have it there. But this is not what I wanted just to share here with you. First of all, I want to let you know that the Toilet Paper Diaries has the exact same format as most of the TV shows. We do have a schedule. We were coming live for 50 days in non-stop on the 12 o'clock in the afternoon Central Standard Time in the United States and 9 o'clock in the evening Dubai time. So what happens is, when you do that, you train your audience to come and see you. I mean, we started having on the first episode something like about one person, two people watching the show. Right now, every time that we actually go live, 1,500 plus people come and watch the show. Now, can you think that that is powerful? Absolutely. What did we do? We basically had a schedule. We had a show. That's the important thing. So if you are doing sporadic shows once in a while and doing this and that and the other, and you don't tell the people when you're doing these things, your strategy gets completely lost in all the noise. So now the important thing is, this content, the full hour of content, became also a podcast. So as you can see here, we have also, we have the popular episodes. We have them here. Because of course, I mean, we want people to see what we have done. And we have here also access to our podcast. We are getting, you can subscribe yourself to the podcast, which is something that I recommend you to do either on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, Google Podcasts, and whatever it is. And every time that we do a show, it actually goes there, and then we are creating that piece of content. Now, that piece of content, if you actually noticed, every piece of content is actually broken into 2, 3, 4 different segments, and that goes into YouTube, and that goes into LinkedIn, and that goes into several things. So in 1 hour per day, we actually create 6, 7, 8 different pieces of content. And also, we create a podcast, and also we create a show that people can also get to see. Now, the other thing that we have done, and this has to do with the 3 steps that you need to understand. So once again, step number 1 is power positioning. Second, you need to have a results mechanism. And third, you need to have a leadership marketing strategy. Those are the 3 steps. Once again, power positioning, results mechanism, and leadership marketing. So let's talk about leader positioning. Obviously, what we want to do is we want to do interviews in the exact same way as everyone else is doing, because of course we want to make sure that we connect with people which are influencers. Now, we took a different approach, and instead of actually doing interviews, what we did, we started doing videos. We started asking people for videos, which of course works like a charm. So here what happens is you can see all these experts, and this we had a total of 109 experts. We don't put them all here because of course it will be crazy just to put them all there, but we are putting here the most known. And then what happens is that we are already establishing tremendous credibility. Even if they do not know us in the internet, we are having complete credibility. Now here we have an explanation and a blurb of where we are, and at the very bottom we have something that they recommended me. I had never used it, but I mean, I don't think it will ever harm, is to basically have a donate button, because of course we're not making money for this. So absolutely, if you want to buy us a drink, send us a drink, and we will be very happy to mention that you bought us a drink on the Toilet Paper Diaries. So basically, as you can see, this whole page has been created in the power positioning strategy. Now, we needed a results mechanism. Now, what is the results mechanism? Well, the results mechanism is something that you're going to be learning a little bit later on these specific trainings that we're going to be doing in Fast Forward, so that you will be able to position yourself with a speaker media kit. So now imagine the power of this. We can just basically contact anybody and say we have the media solution, the media angle to come and so that they can see that we're very serious. If they see this body of work that was created in a short period of time, and then they see a media kit which is specifically for global speaking and virtual speaking, people are going to say, well, you know, these guys are completely serious about what they're doing. And then, of course, comes the next level, which is going to be leadership marketing, which is what we are doing at this very moment. And leadership marketing is basically showing that you are the leader, showing that you are the person that knows. And that's the element of Fast Forward. Now, this strategy might sound a little bit complex, but in reality, it's very easy to replicate. And right now, what Dave and I are going to be doing is we're going to be taking you through all that process on these trainings that we're going to be doing, and some coachings, and we're also going to be doing some small group sessions and a mastermind. So this is exactly what the Fast Forward strategy is. First of all, power positioning. Second, result mechanisms. And third, leadership marketing.
Wonderful. Excellent, Esther. Thanks for sharing that with us. And as you can see, a little behind the scenes of what it takes to create this online TV show. And it's also part of this marketing plan. And it's something that I know most people won't consider, because the angle that most people did when it went into lockdown is, I'm going to sell all my stuff super cheap, as much as I can, because I don't know where it's going and I know people will be online. And they found that they sold it all super cheap, or they tried to, people didn't buy it, and then how do you put your prices up again after that? They hadn't created a relationship, even the sales funnel that you've got to create with people, they hadn't done that, they just panicked and put it out there. One of the things you'll have noticed that Ernesto and I spend a lot of time just on value, even for this show, the very first Fast Forward show, we've been going for almost 2 hours of solid content to give you an opportunity to position yourself above the competition in the food chain. And with that, I think it makes a huge difference. And you'll see that as you go on with us on this journey over the next couple of weeks and months, just the difference it makes for you in your own individual industry as well. One thing I will say, and it's probably the biggest lesson you got from what we spoke about today, is all about being an early adopter. We started the Toilet Paper Diaries straight away. We got in there before anybody else could work it out, even before the big boys had realized that the game had changed. Well, now everyone's coming out of their shell, coming out of the pandemic, coming out of the lockdown. They're all going back to work. So if you hadn't put together some kind of system or stepped up with edtech before, you really have no time but to start straight away. So make sure you connect with myself and Ernesto and speak on stage and so on, because it's going to be a very bumpy ride, and the early adopters will still win the game. Everybody else, as you've seen, will be sitting there wondering, where did my job go? And we want to make sure that we fast forward you to a brand new level that you can be with us.
We were in Mumbai, then we went to Dubai, and we were saying, well, you know, we're going to start implementing every single thing. We are taking pictures, we're taking videos, we're going to start implementing. Suddenly, we just come back within a few days, and we hear that we're going to go in lockdown. And what happened? I mean, the two of us immediately went into, oh my goodness, okay, so things are going to change. Things are going to change dramatically. What are you going to do? And I have a formula which I shared there with you, and I'll share it now with you. I mean, these conversations are very intimate. I mean, this is what normally Dave and I talk about when we actually talk about it. And we said, well, we have to do something. So I know this formula, and this is exactly how it works. So there's 3 steps. Write them down. Step number 1 is called power positioning. Power positioning. That's step number 1. Step number 2 is create a results mechanism. Results mechanism. That's step number 2. And step number 3 is called leadership marketing. So knowing those 3 steps, I talked with Dave, and I said, well, what can we do? What were the first things that came into our mind? Oh, we have to do some webinars. Oh, we have to do this. Oh, we have to do that. Oh, we have to do the other. But then we said, well, you know what's going to happen? Everybody's going to start doing that. So we have to make sure that we are positioned differently, because if not, things are not going to happen.
We also had to take risks. Sorry to say that, Ernesto. I know we're going to go back in a moment. We decided that we'd take some risks and get out of our comfort zone, because if you think about how many people do what we do around the world, every man and his dog will be playing it safe. So we had to be doing
Correct.
something that was challenging for us.
And what did we see? What did we see the first time that we saw Trevor Noah and Jimmy Kimmel and Stephen Colbert presenting in their home office? I mean, just explain this, because this is just really powerful, because this is where the aha moment came for us.
We realized that what was going to happen was every single person who was a late night TV show host was going to have to go into lockdown. And unless they actually have a home studio and they have a captive audience who they keep in the garden or they keep in a dungeon to come out and clap for them, the level playing field that was going to be created across the world was going to be something like, if you're ready to step up, then you could actually jump on board. Now, the thing for us is, we're both speakers, we're both experienced, but we don't have access to the big stars. We don't have access to producers and big lights and an audience that are pre-warmed up before we come on. But what we could do was we could start something, and when everybody else was in lockdown, their something would be on the same level as us. And this is talking about a TV show. It's not necessarily talking about any other particular industry, but the same is true for every industry, whether you're a baker or you drive cars or you do gardening. There was a level playing field which was there about the last 2 months. So we started creating a TV show based on one thing, based on empathy. It was all about making sure that whoever was in lockdown, if they're scared, we will be there for you. And we made a commitment to each other, which was crazy and bonkers at the time, but we stuck with it. We won't stop doing the show until we see people coming out of lockdown. And we had no idea, same as anybody else, how long it was going to go on for. And it went to 50 episodes, day in, day out. We went online, but we had an intention, which was to stay ahead of the curve. We knew that all the big guys, all the Trevor Noahs and all the Stephen Colberts and John Olivers would, after a while, get back into the groove, and it would look like they're doing a proper studio show, but from their homes. But what they did leave was a gap. So we threw ourselves at the gap as fast as we possibly could. And now, if you look at most of the big news reports and most of the TV shows that are still going on, they're not dissimilar to what we're experiencing right now. And you've got a whole team and a whole network and a broadcasting station versus what you got here, a little Mexican bloke and a guy who's got dreads, which is pretty cool.
So that's exactly the point. So then what happens afterwards? We started putting together the content, and we were thinking, well, what's the Wi-Fi code of people? So we said empathy. We wanted to bring positive news. Within about a week or 10 days of we got started, John Kaczynski started with the Some Good News show, and it was a very similar format. And we said, you know what, Dave, we already hit the right Wi-Fi code for what is going on right now. And we started doing this. So once again, coming back into the 3 points. First of all, it's power positioning. And we understood that that was going to be very important. So most people said, well, let's go to the podcast. And everybody was doing the podcast, or he was doing the interview, or he was doing all these kind of things. We said, no, let's try to contact all the incredible contacts and all the incredible people that we know, and let's bring them to the show. But we knew it was going to be very difficult to do day in and day out, day in and day out. And then we said, well, let's start doing videos. And we started bringing everybody through videos, which I think it's incredibly powerful. And then we started crafting our own little way on how to handle this. Now, there's two elements right now on the global speaker or global expert or global business kind of thing. You see, right now, we don't only have the power positioning as speakers. We also changed a lot of things that we were doing in our speaker career, but now we have the platform. So now we became ideal people for them to bring us into companies. As you were talking a moment ago, right now, if you show with an event planner, well, I have a platform where people go and watch me every time that I appear. I have 1,000 people watching me live for an hour. Plus on top, this is what I can do for your company. I mean, what company could resist that? It's just really powerful.
And the thing is, this is not about becoming an influencer. Influencers for the last couple of years on social media have been getting millions of people following them and so on. And they've done really well to create content that's managed to engage people and so on. But this is a new thing for two reasons. First of all, people are internet slaves now. They have no choice because there's nowhere else to go. Okay, they're starting to go to coffee shops and starting to go out. But for the last 2 months, they've been online, giving social media more attention than ever before, but also because it is a completely new world. So Netflix was winning, and it has dominated like the Netflix and the other streaming systems. But normal terrestrial TV, where you create a TV show in your region and people come on who are guests, or you do a cooking show, they had to have social distancing, so they couldn't do that. So what Ernesto and I are doing here is different. There's not many people who've created something just like this. Now there's podcasters and there's TV people who are all doing it. So we had to find an angle, and this is our angle. And so what we wanted to do was create the Wi-Fi code of our audience. Here's what you're going to look at. If you're doing live speaking to an audience, and the same things will be considered when you actually do speaking through the internet, when you do an online Zoom call or a webinar or some kind of virtual experience. First of all, you got to think about how you connect. The Wi-Fi code is how you would walk into an office or walk into a room or walk into a venue, and you say, is there Wi-Fi? And we say, yes. And we say, look for the code 123. So you look at 123 and suddenly you have internet. That's the same as when you want to work with an audience and create that special relationship. So there's a number of things that I'm going to share with you, 10 things that make the difference. First of all, before you go into the room, to set it up to be exactly the way that you want it to. You want to make sure that it's all set up for the best way to communicate with people. Setting up the room also means where the people are going to be. Also means that you're going to have an idea about where you stand and where you walk and how you connect. Because these are all the things that they need to see. If they can't catch you, they won't work with you. But when they can, that brings you a little bit closer. So therefore, you can do a number of different tricks to make sure that you connect with them at different stages throughout the entire presentation. Then, of course, you've got to look at who you are. Now, before James came onto the show today, we made a big fuss about what a big star he is. So that meant that when James started talking, the expectations had gone up. Of course, he delivered. But it means that the more that people know about you, the easier it is to connect with them as long as you deliver at that point. So therefore, your marketing, the social proof of your internet, and also the materials that you use to position yourself, maybe music, showing a video before you start speaking, make a huge impact and a huge difference as well. Now, getting on stage and how quickly you're connecting with your audience makes a big difference as well. The way that you walk on, if you just sort of slovenly walk on, or the way that you go, "Hello, here I am," or the way that you come onto music, that makes a connection and you only get one go at doing it effectively. You also got to think about, what is it that has to be done to make the end result come through? It's like baking a cake. If the oven's too hot, you're going to burn it. If the oven's not warm enough, you're not going to be able to get it to rise enough. So with your audience, you want to be able to know the levels that you have them at. Do you take them really excited? You drop them down a little bit. You need to have that ability to change and pace and involve and remove and drop the pace to what you would need to get them to the next level. Then, of course, you need to look at what it is that the organizers are going to tell you. They know their audience. They know what's happened beforehand. They know what you are brought in to do. If you go in without any of those bits of intuition and experience and information, then you're going out cold. And how many times have you been to see a rock concert where they bring on a band who's a warm-up band and they're just flat? They really don't see the same kind of audience, or maybe came on because they were local, or they were cheap, or they were just starting, and most people just went away to the bar or went to get some sandwiches and they just ignored the band. That's because they're a different connection. That's because it's not the right mix. You need to think about that to connect for the Wi-Fi code. Also, you need to make sure that what you're doing constantly is being aware of how well you're going down, creating those feedback loops, creating a call to action that you start off before telling people what they're going to get, all the way through, you're checking that they're still with you. And afterwards, if you haven't done that, you've got a wasted opportunity. So there's a couple of other things I want to share. You need to be able to measure the feedback afterwards to make sure that you were on the right track for the Wi-Fi code to be right with your organization and with the people in your audience. You check it with the organizers, check they're happy. You check with people who are with you, who are insiders, who know the audience, they know the venue, they know you, and they can give you a good critique of everything. But of course, your best way of judging whether it works or not is your audience reactions. But you have to make sure that the reaction that you get is what the objective of the overall event was meant to be. If everyone's singing and dancing and going crazy, and you're actually at a funeral to give respect, then that might mean you don't get invited back again. Well, maybe they want it to be like that. But in some countries, that's the way they have a funeral. In other countries, it's a different way. And on top of it all, the most essential skill you have to have is to be able to adapt in real time to all the things I've mentioned. You can find there's a number of different factors that come along that shake you up, drop you in it, alter the way that you are of the audience. You may have noticed in this very show with Ernesto, we have challenges with the internet all the way through, and we both have to be effective to be able to adapt to it and make sure that we don't drop the ball, and we're still there to share with you lots of great content, lots of great ideas, and take you on your journey. If we didn't do that, you'd very simply vote with your feet and go click. Well, that's with your hands, and go click. So those are some of the ways that you've got to consider connecting with your Wi-Fi and connecting with your audience. Ernesto and I were talking at the World's HR Congress in Mumbai, and that was just before the lockdown. It was literally January, February. Was it late January, I think it was. And so we went on stage in front of about 500-600 people, I think, in the auditorium, and we shared our ideas about the HR world and what we'd need to improve and what could work there, what would work not so well. Now, in this particular clip, the gentleman bringing me on stage didn't have enough information to be able to build me up on time. And so what he did was he basically said, go on stage, start talking, and we'll fire off your PowerPoint when you're ready. Now, if you're a professional, you never do that. You don't leave the side of a stage until you're ready to go on. So to explain exactly what happened, I know that sometimes this happens around the world, and I can't always be guaranteed to be brought on the way that I want to. So I have a video just in case I'm in a situation where I have to reestablish myself. And you'll see how that fits in when you watch this clip.
For 30 minutes of you, Mr. Dev Kren. He's from Dubai, and he's going to talk on the future leader. Dev, over to you, and presentation is just getting ready, so you can take the stage.
Thank you so much. My light's not on yet, so I'll just wait until we're plugged in, and then we're good to go.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. That's it. In 30 seconds, let's do that again.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've hosted over 1,000 events.
And there's nothing more exciting or nerve-wracking than getting to introduce one of the best in the business.
He's an award-winning international motivational speaker and coach. He's worked with celebrities like James Brown and Bruce Willis.
And I'm Jack Canfield. And I'm Brian Tracy.
And I'm John Gray.
I'm Jared Robbins.
And I'm Perry Marshall.
Hi, and I'm George Reed.
To audiences of over 1 billion people. He's sharing how to become unstoppable in business. It's my honor to introduce to you Dave Crane.
So there we go. That's what it's like to go on stage. So there's a number of things that we're going to teach you, and a number of things we're going to share with you throughout the entire series here on Fast Forward. Tips about marketing, tips about stagecraft, and tips about the ability to get yourself into any audience around the world and have them eating out the palm of your hand in just very short moments in time. And we had an incredible time there in Mumbai, didn't we, Ernesto?
It was great. And every time I watch that video, I have to say, well, I mean, that just shows how incredibly professional you are. I mean, you immediately identified that the introduction was going to be very poor, which obviously you knew what was going to happen. I mean, you predicted it so well. I saw it live, and it was really a work of art. It was just poetry in motion. And this is exactly the thing that you need to learn. How to pick up in the Wi-Fi. Now, you know, Dave, and I think that just goes perfect because what happens is that right now, because of people being still in self quarantine, still in lockdown, many of them, and right now not being able to see your audiences, how do you actually digitally can connect with people so that these things don't happen? Right now, we're trying to simulate as much as possible a live event. So, Dave, what do you think of our stage?
Well, I love it. The thing is, looking at that stage there with all the people at the bottom, that's actually how some of the sports events are happening around the world, where they've got cardboard people, cutouts. In fact, in Japan, I think they got into trouble because they used inflatable dolls. And put them in the stadium and hope that people could get away with it. And every single one of them was holding a cup. But one of the things is about when you start working online and working offline, what we've found for many entertainers and for many speakers is you stop being an engagement artist. You now become a broadcaster. You've got to think radio. You've got to think TV. Because effectively what we're doing now is we could be CNN, we could be MSNBC, we could be Fox, we could be BBC. We're actually creating a newsroom type environment and sharing tips and ideas and stuff from all around the world. And so that is, for us, what we found to be the Wi-Fi code of working online during the pandemic and beyond.
Dave, it was great to actually re-see and rewatch these blueprints and these episodes. What do you think?
We look so young and so innocent, and you can see that twinkle in our eyes thinking we're not going to be here that long, and we were so wrong. But yeah, it's good to look at it, and the information is just as fresh as it was when we created it. So if you enjoyed watching these, feel free to share them with your friends. Make sure you make notes on them and stick around for the next one, because I guarantee you'll learn a lot with the Secret Toilet Paper Diaries.
See you guys next week.